we're going to be discussing what are some of the learning habits of Generation Z students. So one of those being is that they prefer instant feedback. And an example of this would be if they're working on an essay that they give in the classroom, that they prefer the teacher to be walking around and looking over the basic framework of the essay, maybe their thesis statement, so that the teacher can provide instant feedback. And it's just found that when they don't get that instant feedback, they tend to get frustrated. That could cause them maybe not to complete their assignment. Another learning habit is for them to make the classroom a social environment. Generation Z students are known for being very social and wanting to work collaboratively. So when you make their learning a social environment, they prefer that. And another way is they like to create content nibbles. This breaks down the instructions of a large assignment into smaller parts. We actually read in one of our papers that the Generation Z students actually have an attention span of 8 seconds, and this has gone down from the millennial generation that was 12 seconds before that. So you always have to be giving the kids content in small doses so that they aren't overwhelmed and so that they're not losing everything you're teaching them. Your most last one was a recommendation from the teacher we interviewed, and she said that she always feels like she has to put on a good show for the kids. That means like getting out in front, making the class exciting so that your students will want to listen to you. How do we engage a Generation Z student? One of the ways is to utilize video-based learning. Generation Z students love technology, so if you can utilize both of those, some teachers have done the flipped classroom model where they go home in the evening and they watch a lecture of their teacher doing the lesson, and then when they go into class, they have independent work, and then the teacher can go around and fill in the gaps of what they might have missed at home. So that's one recommendation. Another way is to incorporate intrapersonal learning and work in the classroom. So that means allowing students time to think about what they learned internally to themselves to process before they are released to work in groups and collaborate with their classmates. Another thing they suggested was to offer community engagement opportunities. They found that Generation Z students are they're very socially aware and they want to help out social causes. So if you offer them engagement in there, then they'll be more engaged in the content you're learning. And the last way is to connect students to internship opportunities. It was found that students are more willing to learn if they think that skill will transfer to their future career, future job. So getting that started really early is going to help your student be interested in learning. The last part is how can we use technology to enhance their learning? And I just want to talk about the fallacy of the digital native. The Generation Z students, they grew up with computers, so a lot of educators think that they're very social or digitally native, but that's not always true. It depends basically on their social economic status, and while they might have computer skills for social work, not all of them are able to use the digital technologies for school and work. So it would be important for you in the classroom to go over those, like we talked about earlier in our presentation, like Google Classroom, Google Docs, Google Drives, how to research on databases and things like that. And contrary to the prevailing nature of today's teenagers, a survey revealed that only a modest enthusiasm for technology, particularly within use of education. So while students are supposedly addicted to technology, these Generation Z students, they're only moderately enthusiastic about using it in the classroom. So you don't have to feel like everything you do in the classroom has to be online. I think there can be a good mix of both. And here are some teacher recommended resources that are free or relatively cheap ways to use technology in your classroom. There's Google Classroom, where the kids can turn in assignments to you all in one spot. You can post announcements. It would be similar to the Blackboard we use in college. Another resource is Quizlet, and there's also another breakout of that called Quizlet Live, which turns like reviewing for a test or quiz. They put them into teams randomly, and it's really competitive, and I've seen it, and it's crazy, and it's really fun. Nearpod, Plickers, Remind. Remind is an app that allows you to have all the students and sometimes parents' phone numbers with their permission, and you could send a text to all of the kids maybe at like 4 or 5 and just remind them of maybe of a test or upcoming homework or even a permission slip that they need to bring back. So that is also a really good resource. There's Kahoot, which is another review game, Padlet, Google Maps, and Goose Chase. So I'm sure there's many more other than this on the list, but those are some of the ones we chose. And here are our references. And thank you for listening.